Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Arthritis Show, a global information source dedicated to patients with arthritis and sports injuries. Joining us today, exclusively on our studios, is Dr. Frank Maye. Welcome, Dr. Maye.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Dr. Maye, you practice a unique practice. Can you tell the audience out there what you do?
The focus of what I do is how consciousness affects human physiology. Kind of a holistic approach from cradle to grave. How I came about looking at that as why was consciousness so important was in my first career I was a police officer and an investigator for 20 years, and everything was cause and effect. Then in midlife I became a patient, male breast cancer, and I decided to see what else was there out there that got people sick besides what we knew. And that took me to Chinese medicine, took me to naturopathic medicine, and eventually to a PhD in biophysics and consciousness.
Fantastic. Now, what are some of the things that do influence you in your practice?
Well, interestingly enough, you're a rheumatologist. So I look at people's pain and chronic conditions, whether it's lupus, whether it's fibromyalgia, whether it's osteoarthritis, as to, did this just develop? Did the obesity just begin to cause this? Or was there some cause and effect from childhood, some informational system that went wrong? Well, every country in the world has changed their informational system but Africa. So stress today is not what it was 50 years ago. And the information that and how we deal with that information is much different. As you know as a doctor, the hypothalamus is something that regulates our fight-flight response with stress.
That's right.
It regulates our desire for hunger, for thirst. So it could be something as simple as being a premature baby, or not being breastfed, or having a poor experience at home with eating issues that can affect obesity for the rest of your life.
That's exactly right. Now, I just wanted to correct you. I'm not a rheumatologist. I practice regenerative medicine.
Even better. Even better.
Now, what is the, tell us about the philosophy of this holistic medicine. What is the philosophy behind that?
The philosophy of holistic medicine is from cradle to grave. That there is informational systems in the body, in the connective tissue, that the connective tissue is made of liquid crystalline. It basically functions as a semiconductor, that the cell membrane has a cellular capacity of about 70 millivolts, and that even in cell mitosis, the centrioles create a infrared ultraviolet spectrum during cell mitosis. So information goes from the cell through the connective tissue all the way back to the brain in a very systemic and systematic fashion. And that needs to be factored into our medicine of the future. When we look at a neuron, it has 70 millivolts of electricity that go in a direction and have a predictable electromagnetic field around them that carries information all through the body. If that information is dysfunctional, in the latter third, fourth, and fifth decades of life, we will begin to have a breakdown of the body's immune system. And then that becomes important for you as a regenerative physician. You're trying to regenerate with your toolbox, and my approach is that we all need to gather our toolboxes together in an integral fashion, in a team concept, to deliver patient-centered health care.
What do you see currently going to happen for the future of medicine? Where are you going with that?
Well, I think that we know from our Russian colleagues, Peter Garyev, that you can shine an infrared laser on a DNA sample and that you'll get a holographic display of that DNA, sort of like a tree. We also know from Peter's work in the early 90s that you can take a leaf and shine a laser through a leaf and get a photographic image of the entire leaf at a distance. Peter then went and amputated part of that leaf, and lo and behold, at a distance, he got a photographic image of the entire leaf, as if it was never amputated. So our work now, my work, Peter's work, Hooping Yu's work, is that we're looking at the transfer of holographic information, both inside the body and outside as a concept of how the universe works in biophysics. That's extremely exciting. The people that are doing stem cell research, our people and the people doing stem cell research will get together and be able to direct and program stem cells to do specific functions and to be able to transfer specific pieces of information.
What is this thing? What is the quantum effect, Doc? Can you, for audience out there, can you explain that?
Well, I just wrote a paper out at the California Institute for Human Science. I'll be glad to send it forward to you.
Love to show that on the show as well.
On the effect of omega-3 and quantum psychiatry. It's well documented. It was some of the work that I looked to and researched was in neuroquantology and the work of Hooping Yu in neural spin. Basically, what happens with omega-3 and linoleic acid in particular is that you have three fatty acids, linoleic acid in the middle, that act and operate as a liquid type of solution for electrical transfer from one neuron, the end of one neuron, to the opening of another neuron through a synapse. And that if omega-3 is deficient and linoleic acid is deficient, then the vortex that occurs in that synapse between neurons either speeds up on one side and causes bipolar disease, or slows down on both sides and causes major depression. So for the first time, we're looking at neurons from an electrical capacity, from an electromagnetic capacity. We're looking at oxygen pathways and nitrous oxide pathways as paramagnetic pathways. And the transfer of information across that synapse is very dependent on omega-3 not being deficient. Now, why would that be important in regenerative medicine? Because as a patient begins to get depressed, that is the first signal that the immune system is down-regulating. With an immune system that is down-regulating, there is no way you're going to be able to regenerate anything. You have to have an immune system that's functional. You have to have a connective tissue that's functional. You have to have a cell that is, the electrical capacity is at its best. So I would say that as a result of this show, that everybody that I was doing regenerative work on, I would be sending out for lab work on fatty acid deficiency and supplementing them with omega-3 fatty acids weeks prior to their regenerative intervention.
That's incredible work. Well, we're going to take a break at this point. When we come back, more with Dr. Maye.